You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. Thursday, I leave for Ghana, folks, for a 10-day trip. And that country, they were thinking anywhere about 100,000 folks were going to be traveling there with this year of return. In fact, they've actually processed more than 1 million visas to Ghana in the year of return. Akon recently talked about African Americans should be investing in Ghana and other African nations. According to a report by the UN Conference on Trade and Development, Africa is the most profitable region in the world. And there are ways that Americans, especially black folks, can tap into that. Joining me now is Franklin Miles. He's founder and director of AWE African Development. Franklin, glad to have you here. What do you make of what Akon said, the opportunities for African Americans to invest in Africa?
He's absolutely right. I mean, my organization, AWE African Development, specializes in identifying entrepreneurs and opportunities in Africa and connecting them with American, primarily European investors. I think Akon's absolutely right in emphasizing the need for African Americans to get involved in the market. At AWE, we help people sort of identify entrepreneurs, companies in need of investment in Africa, in industries such as telecom, transport, and IT. And so I think it behooves Americans and the American government actually to facilitate some sort of investments in Africa for business reasons as well as strategic reasons.
But is America really doing that?
No, it's not. Or at least it's far lagging behind Europe and mainly China. And it's really sad. I mean, China leads with state enterprises and with large governmental-owned companies. But, you know, the advantage of America is we're a country of entrepreneurs. We celebrate free enterprise. And to that extent, you know, Africa is known to have one of the largest set of entrepreneurs in the world. Places like Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya have tons of entrepreneurs who are starting companies. And so Americans are really missing out on that sort of cultural connect with entrepreneurs to entrepreneurs, investing in private sector. And so it really is sad that America is sort of falling behind these other major players in the world when it comes to Africa.
One of the things that I saw this video the other day with my man, John Hope Bryant, and he was talking about the opportunities that are there. I thought it was quite interesting that he was sharing with people because he had just gotten back from South Africa. And so go to my iPad. I want to play this here. Here we go to my iPad.
Or what can you do for Africa terms? And I want you to do what you can for Africa, but I just got back from South Africa with my family, and I've got a message for you. Africa can do something for you. I'm about to give you 2 ways for you to benefit financially from Africa. That's right, either income, or wealth. Here you go. Number 1, if you're working class, you've worked your whole life, okay? You've got $25,000 saved up. Check your retirement plan or whatever program you use. If you have $50,000 saved up, you're really in good shape. All right, you got 25 grand saved up, 50 grand ideally. All right, from your retirement plan for your, whatever. You've been working someplace. You got an insurance policy because somebody passed, unfortunately, in your family. But you got 50 grand, and you have a marketable skill. I want you to think about going to South Africa, okay? Because the rand is 12, 13, 14 rand to the dollar. Now, that's real money. So here's what you do. You go there, and you can buy a $250,000, $300,000 house, and I mean a nice one, okay, for $25,000 cash. I mean a beautiful house. In fact, if you use a little leverage, a loan, you can buy, don't overdo it, but you can take a 25 grand cash, and maybe because you're a foreigner, they're gonna give you a 50% loan-to-value loan on it, but whatever it is, you can get like a $500,000 beautiful house in South Africa and help your brothers and sisters in South Africa and help the economy there for, little to nothing, and you owe very little debt on it. Number 2, you're gonna get a job there as let's say an English instructor or you're teaching something because let's say you're a teacher in Detroit. You're gonna go there because teachers are in demand, right? They're gonna pay you top dollar. And even though it's less than here, it's, again, 12, 13, 14 rand to the US dollar. So if you've got another 25 grand saved up, so you had 25 grand, all right, that you put down payment, 25 grand saved up, or you put $25,000 in investments there, start a little business or something, and you're working and your cost of living is lower, okay? Simple math is you're going to do extremely well. Here's how you actually build wealth. Do well.
Frankly, what about that? Because what he's saying is, stop just thinking you have to be here. Think about literally living in the motherland.
So essentially, in South Africa is where I discovered opportunities too. I mean, I lived in South Africa for 5 years, and it's a beautiful country. And when you go there, you actually see the opportunities. And there are lots of African Americans who live in South Africa too, doing the exact same thing. But number one is he nails on the point that Africa is not just a place you vacation; it's an investment destination, and that's sort of the best way of viewing Africa these days. It's a country, it's a continent that's viewed as a place, that has lots of strive, gets aid. But the best thing you could do for Africa is actually invest. Now, if you really want to do things, you can move there too, because South Africa is a wonderful place to live. Just financially, but also just in terms of what it has to offer. But the best thing you can do is see Africa as an investment destination. That'll do more than anything else to start growth there.
Eugene?
Are there any crowd funds or that target particularly African investments? Or let's just put it this, what would be as a 29-year-old, right? What would be the best way to get involved right now?
So I think it's what you're saying.
I want a port.
So like,
I want a port like China.
You wanted to?
I want a port.
Okay.
I want to get into shipping.
Oh, well, well, $500 million would do you some good there. But like you said,
Roland about it. He got it.
Right. So the critical thing about Africa is that, to invest in a fund is to find a fund that actually does work there. And there are very few that actually do. And that's one of the things that Alway is trying to do is sort of recruit investors, create funds that can actually facilitate that sort of investment. Because it is international capital. Yeah. But you can also move to Africa and have your money sort of, put into a bank account there and invest in small businesses as well. So it might not be a port, but, the thing about Africa is small entrepreneurship too. So, a port can go a long ways, but also like investing in a business in, say, Nairobi or in Johannesburg or in Accra would go a long ways too.
Rob?
Yeah. So this is a great conversation. I think for our community, we have to change our mindset. Just like Deborah said earlier, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable to really be able to see wealth generated. So I think what holds a lot of people back is that well, how do I just take this step to go to Africa and make investments in a country I don't know about? So that would be my question back to our guest a little bit. What steps would you say if someone says, okay, I'm interested? What's the first way to go about investing, and then how do you know the quality of the entity that you're working with? Like, what should you measure when you're evaluating the investments that you're making in Africa?
So one of the things we work with at Alway is, first of all, you talk to me. That's the best way of doing it. But what do we do? Plug in there. So what we do at Alway is we identify sort of we screen entrepreneurs for the quality of their experience, of their the biography, basically to see if are you really good to work with. And I work with our organization's entirely African American and African owned, and in fact, that many of my business partners are from Africa, and I've known them for several years, so it's easy for me to trust that. And that's one of the difficult barriers in investing in Africa is you have to have a local partner in terms of investment. You can't just walk into the market and trust anybody. I mean, people have lost money like that all over the world, not just in Africa, and sort of pursuing that strategy. So I would encourage you, for whatever means you can, is to find a local partner that you can work with. If you don't know the person very well, do some research, ask very detailed questions, but it's about finding someone from that market who knows it very well. Now, this is Washington, D.C. area, so there's a large sort of African community here in G County. And so I think here it's actually quite easy to find people who are connected to the markets.
Is there any like Better Business Bureau or something like that? For Africa, is something like an overall, just so if someone knows, like if you go to this entity, they have all. I mean, I know it's your organization, but let's say there's a collection. Yeah. Is there a collection that says, okay, these are the organizations you can trust because
Got it.
they've gone through
Right.
this process. That's kind of my question. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so Department of Commerce, they have an African bureau, actually, where you can go and have resources specifically dedicated to Africa. And even in South Africa, if you go there, they even have resources there for people who want to do business in Africa. So there are government-provided resources as well.
Cleo, real quick.
Well, first of all, Mr. Miles, it's a pleasure to meet you. I look forward to further conversation. But I'm sitting here in a slight state of shock because I'm thinking of the cliche, if you live long enough, you'll see things happen that you never saw before. And I've been going back and forth from Africa, particularly West Africa and South Africa forever. And it's been compared to the rest of the population of black people in the country kind of isolating because they don't know what I'm talking about. They have no idea what's there. And they have a Tarzan they saw Tarzan and they think they know, or the Lion King, and they think they know, and they're not really proud compared to the Eiffel Tower in terms of their mind in this society. And I know how beautiful Africa is. I know what the opportunities are, and I'm going to learn more from you, I hope. But I'm just in a state of shock at the shift, and all of the year of return and all of this stuff that's happening. It's just exciting. And I know that people are jumping on it, and there's more people need to know about the fact that Africa is a beautiful place. It's gorgeous. There's a lot of healthiness there in terms of the nutrition, the ecosystem, and it's not the negativity that a lot of us assume, because some of us are trained to disassociate. I'm sure you know that from Africa. And I really embrace what you're doing because I think it's going to attract people to transform that negative perspective into a positive perspective and invest in it.
Real quick. Comment?
Yes. The first thing, when you mentioned moving to the continent of Africa, the first thing I thought about was safety. As a black woman and as a millennial, we have started going back to the continent, and it's become a little bit normalized, but moving there seems kind of...
You said moving there.
It kind of intimidates me because I've seen a lot of civil unrest, heard about the corruption in the government, and I just wanted to know if...
Are we talking about the United States right now?
Okay, that's what I was thinking the same thing.
Because the reality is, a number of people have actually moved there. Young folks as well. There was a brother who was a professor in Chicago who got sick and tired of the violence there. Took $30,000+. He's been living there more than a decade. There are a number of expatriates. Ghana has a huge community of African Americans who've been there going back 30, 40 years. And so the more folks hear about these opportunities, it's causing them to say, wait a minute, hold up. There are places you go to, like I was talking to Michelle McKinney-Hammond. She says, Roland, I'm going to take you to some places in Ghana that you think that you were sitting here in Beverly Hills or Bel Air.
It's very true. Yeah,
and Sister, Ghana doesn't have a police brutality problem. They don't have no Tamir Rice equivalents or Michael Brown equivalents. It's a quite beautiful and peaceful place, Ghana.
Because you see black people all the time. Franklin, final comment, real quick.
Well, I was going to say, just to get back to you, it's like every market is different. So Ghana actually is perception-wise safer than South Africa, even though South Africa is a more developed market. But, you know, I lived all over the world, and I've never had a problem living in South Africa. And no, you don't have to move there, but spend some time there. Spend some time anywhere you invest in. So spend 6 months there, and you'll notice in 6 months that the opportunities are there. So I encourage African Americans to really get involved meaningfully in Africa.
All right, how do folks reach out to you?
How
do they reach you?
So how do you reach you? AweAfricaDev.com.
Say it again.
AweAfricaDev.com.
All right.
AweAfricaDev.com.
All right, well, appreciate it.